Modern science is only concerned with what it can measure, which are all aspects of focal consciousness. However, the hidden world of the subconscious, our inner emotions and feelings, cannot be measured, although we all agree that those feelings and emotions exist. Thomas Young's double slit experiment is a prime example of how matter at the quantum level can be both a wave and a particle. The experiment discovered that when consciousness observes matter, the waveform appears to collapse, leaving the particle as the expression of the energy in question. And when consciousness is not observing matter, it will continue to behave in a waveform. When firing ball bearings through a single slit, a slit pattern is produced on the back screen. And when firing a wave pattern through a single slit, the wave fans out from the center. When ball bearings are fired through two slits, a double slit pattern appears. When a wave is sent through two slits, the result is two separate wave patterns which collide with one another, causing an interference pattern on the screen. When we perform this experiment at the quantum level and fire small particles of matter like electrons at the screen, something unexpected happens. First, a steady stream of electrons were fired through a single slit, producing a slit pattern on the screen. The next thing they did was to fire a stream of electrons through two slits. With astonishment, the electron particles behaved like waves and created an interference pattern on the screen. How can matter create an interference pattern like a wave? They should act like the ball bearings and pass through both slits, leaving a double slit pattern on the back screen. This baffled scientists, so they performed the experiment again, this time firing one electron at a time. The results were the same, a slit pattern with one slit and an interference pattern with two. It suggests that the single electron leaves the gun and becomes a wave, goes through both slits and interferes with itself before hitting the screen like a particle. The scientists needed to pay more attention to the electron. Was it going through slit A or slit B? They set up a sensor to monitor one of the slits. When they ran the experiment, they found 50% of the electrons went through slit A and 50% went through slit B, which was to be expected. But to their surprise, the interference pattern on the screen had gone, replaced by the double slit pattern. They turned the sensor off and fired the electrons. The interference pattern came back again. When the sensor was on, there was a double slit, and the sensor was off, an interference pattern. How can this be? Just the act of observing the single electron will cause it to behave like a particle. But when no one is observing, the electron reverts back to a waveform. The focal consciousness can only occupy one position at any given moment, as demonstrated by the near-death experience. In 1987, a 31-year-old mother of two from California was booked to go into hospital for her final discectomy and laminectomy as part of her back treatment. The day before the operation, the doctors wanted to perform a myelogram, a procedure to inject iodine dye into the spine to look for problems on X-rays. The nurse injected the dye into the lady's neck while she was lying on the X-ray table. The table was then supposed to lift the lady steadily upright to allow gravity to aid the dye descend down her spine. This didn't happen. She lay flat and began to hyperventilate. She eventually blacked out and immediately went from her physical body to a place on the ceiling, looking down on herself and the heads of the doctors. From her new vantage point, she heard one of the doctors call out "Code Blue." This call is used to indicate a patient requiring resuscitation or otherwise in need of immediate medical attention. From her new position on the ceiling, she felt very calm, relaxed and content. Presuming she had died, she noticed a presence next to her, a familiarity as though she had known this presence always. While the resuscitation was going on below, she began to communicate with this presence. She made it clear she wanted to go back into her body and be with her children again, telling the presence that she had not yet fulfilled her life's purpose and needed to go back. The commotion below intensified. She saw an oxygen mask being placed over her face and a man position a small box on the ledge next to the X-ray table. She made a comment to the presence about the box, asking what it was. At that moment she found herself positioned in front of the box, looking straight at it. She realized after a while it was a heart monitor. When the box was turned on, the line on the screen was flat from left to right, with a continuous beep. The lady went back to the ceiling to be with the presence. Below her, the neurosurgeon and orthopedic surgeon were talking about the delayed arrival of the defibrillator to the X-ray room. It was taking too long. The orthopedic surgeon told everyone to stand clear. He stepped forward towards the lady's lifeless body and struck her in the chest with the full force of his fist. This procedure is regarded as a last-ditched attempt at shocking the heart into beating again. The second time he struck the lady's chest, in an instant she went straight back into her body and opened her eyes. She was so amazed and excited to be back in her body that she was trying to talk under the oxygen mask. The nurse told her to keep quiet because they needed to stabilize her. After a small bout of silence, the lady started talking again. To the astonishment and disbelief of the doctors and nurses surrounding her, she spoke of being on the ceiling looking at everything unfold below. It was only when she mentioned the conversation between the neurosurgeon and the orthopedic surgeon. How can this woman see and hear all that was going on around her when her heart had stopped and she was unconscious? If the consciousness is not in the physical, it will occupy the wave or light body, and vice versa. The interesting thing to note here is the correlation between Jung's experiment, the focal and subconscious, and the day-night polarities of the zodiac. The day is ruled by the sun, the source and expression of our focal consciousness, where we witness physical matter as particles in the material realm. The night is ruled by the moon, which represents the subconscious, the hidden. Here we tend to sleep, moving our attention away from the focal consciousness into the realms of the spirit world, where matter is no longer viewed as a physical construct, but concurring with Jung reverts back into waveform. When looking at the zodiac, the sun rules Leo during the day, with a symbol that could easily represent a particle with its nucleus and electrons, while on the opposite side in Aquarius, a sign associated with the night, when most people are asleep, we find a waveform glyph being used to symbolize this portion of the zodiac. These polar opposites combine to symbolize both the physical and spiritual realms. Outside our body's biological decoding mechanism is a world beyond the physical, an infinite world of unlimited potential and possibility.